I stood on the porch of the house my husband kept hidden for over 2 decades, the key still digging into my palm. He made it clear, never go there, not while he was alive. I was his wife, but this place, this life, it wasn't meant for me. And yet, here I was, with the key, the silence, and no one left to stop me. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The scent hits me before I even open the drawer. That sharp, familiar trace of cedar and vetiver, his cologne, the one he insisted on for 20 years, even when they stopped stocking it at the mall and we had to order it from some obscure catalog in Vermont. I stand there, the dresser drawer halfway open, afraid to breathe in too deeply. But I do, and it wrecks me. I haven't touched his things until now. Couldn't. The bedroom still feels like it's waiting for him. The shirt still hung by color, his reading glasses folded on the nightstand like he might come back mid-chapter. But this morning, something was different. Like a current under the floorboards had shifted. Like the silence in the house wasn't just absence, but invitation. The drawer sticks a little at the back. I tug gently, and it slides open with a dry groan. Tucked behind old receipts and spare collar stays, I find it. A velvet pouch, burgundy, fraying at the edges. I hold it in my palm for a second. It's heavier than I expect. Inside is a brass key. Worn, cold. A narrow tag tied to it with aging twine. Raven Road. The name alone makes something in my chest cinch. Raven Road. I hadn't thought about it in years. We'd driven past it once on the north side of town. Long, tree-lined. Dead quiet. He'd gotten tense, even angry. "Don't ask me about that place again," he'd said. And I hadn't. Not for 23 years. Now here it was. A key. To a place he swore I should never go. My stomach curls in on itself. Was it a storage unit? A cabin? A safe house? The name sounded like fiction, something out of a novel. And yet the key was real. Solid in my hand. The shrill buzz of my phone startles me. Ellie. I consider not answering. Then swipe. "Hey," I say. Her voice is tight, controlled. "Mom, you didn't touch anything yet, right?" I swallow. My fingers tighten around the key before I slip it back in the pouch. "I thought we said we'd wait until after the will meeting tomorrow. The lawyer said—" "I know what the lawyer said," I interrupt softly. Ellie sighs on the other end. Not impatient, just exhausted. "Mom, please, I know you're grieving, but just wait, okay?" I glance back at the drawer, already closing it. Already pretending none of this happened. "I already have," I whisper. There's a beat of silence on her end. I hang up before she can answer. The weight of the pouch stays in my palm for a long moment before I move again. I take my purse off the chair, slide the key inside the zip pocket, and close it with a slow, deliberate motion. For the rest of the day, I can't shake the feeling, like someone's watching. Not from outside, from the past. Like the key didn't just open a door on Raven Road. Like it opened something in me. That night, I lie in bed staring at the ceiling fan. It turns in slow circles, stirring the same air we've been breathing for decades. Something about tomorrow, the will, the lawyer, Ellie's tone. It all hums with something unspoken. He's gone, but something of him isn't. And I've just found the first piece. The waiting room is too warm, not in temperature, but in tone, fake warmth. The kind they design into the leather armchairs, the abstract art, the gentle hum of whatever smooth jazz station Graham's assistant always has on in the background. It's meant to soothe. It doesn't. Ellie sits to my right, flipping through a magazine she's not reading, her foot tapping a precise, measured rhythm against the leg of her chair. Her suit is a touch too sharp, too rehearsed. She dressed for battle. I didn't. Mrs. Lane? The receptionist says gently. We're led into the conference room. The table is heavy, cherry wood maybe. The blinds are drawn against a gray morning. Graham stands as we enter, the usual soft expression plastered on his face like it's part of the job. Maybe it is. Thank you both for coming. Ellie nods once, brisk. I give him a tight smile I don't feel. He sits, opens the manila folder with practiced calm. Your husband left a clear, updated will. Very organized. It reflects both his business holdings and personal property. The room settles into silence as he begins to read. The house, the cars, the joint accounts. Everything divided neatly between us, with a few bequests to old friends, a foundation I'd forgotten he even donated to. I sit still, hands folded, heartbeat rising even though nothing unexpected comes. Until it does. One exception, Graham says, his tone almost too neutral now. There is one property Richard chose to retain sole ownership of, not included in the marital estate, designated as separate and excluded. I feel it before he says it. The shift in the air, the click of the lock in my mind. The property located on Raven Road. Ellie turns slowly, eyebrows lifted like she's been waiting for this exact moment. Well, she says under her breath, I guess he didn't trust you with everything, did he? I ignore her. My eyes are on Graham, who's suddenly very interested in the papers in front of him. His fingers straighten them unnecessarily. I don't understand, I say. My voice is low, but clear. Why would he exclude that? What's even at Raven Road? Graham shrugs, still not looking at me. He considered it outside the scope of shared assets. It's not relevant to probate. That's not what I asked. I'm sorry, Nora. His voice softens, but it's a deflection, not an answer. Richard handled that property privately. It was his legal right. I glance at Ellie. She's watching me now, not smug anymore, but curious. Like she's wondering if I knew something, if I was part of something. I'm not sure which thought she finds more threatening. Graham closes the folder. You're entitled to request access to anything not sealed, but there's no further information regarding that parcel in the official will. Parcel? I repeat. The word feels clinical, sanitized. I stand slowly. Thank you, Graham. Ellie follows me out but doesn't say anything until we reach the elevator. What was that? She asks. You looked like you'd seen a ghost. I press the down button. He told me never to go there. She frowns. To Raven Road? I nod once. Ellie's face tightens, her jaw twitching like she wants to say something else but doesn't. The elevator opens. We step inside. The silence between us is thick, full of the past and too many things we've never said. When I get back to the car, I don't start it right away. I take the pouch out of my purse again. The brass key feels heavier now, not in weight, but in meaning. He kept it from me on purpose, not in a casual way, in a carved out of the law kind of way. What was he protecting? Or who? I close my fingers around the key and set it gently in the cup holder. He may have drawn a line in ink and legalese, but he's gone now, and I'm crossing it. I leave before sunrise, the sky still inked with the last of the night. I don't tell Ellie. I don't tell anyone. There's a silence to secrets, and this one needs to stay untouched until I know what I'm walking into. The address wasn't hard to find. A quick search through the county's property records, buried beneath layers of LLCs and anonymous trusts, but eventually, it led to one name. Richard Lane, owner of 1087 Raven Road. No mortgage, no history of sale, just his. The fog curls low along the shoulder of the highway as I drive south, hugging the curves of the land like it's hiding something. I passed the last gas station an hour ago, and still, no sign of life. No headlights behind me, no oncoming cars. Just the sound of tires on damp pavement and the dull thud of my heartbeat in my ears. The cell signal drops halfway down a narrow state road. One bar, then none. I should feel afraid, but I don't. I feel awake. The turnoff is unmarked, just a sagging wooden post and a gravel path almost completely swallowed by brush. The tires crunch over loose stone as I ease forward. It's not a road so much as a suggestion of one. Trees press in from both sides, their bare arms scraping the roof of the car as I creep past. And then, the gate. Rust-covered, heavy iron, half camouflaged by ivy and tangled wisteria. A thick chain wraps through the center, held by a padlock that looks like it hasn't been touched in years. I reach into my coat pocket and pull out the key. Its weight feels inevitable now. It slides in with barely a hitch. The chain falls away. I drive through, heart thudding, gravel popping beneath the wheels. The path winds slowly through the trees, and as I go, something strange happens. The landscape changes. The trees here are all magnolias, but not blooming. They're dead, or dying. Wilted petals rot in clusters on the ground, their scent sickly sweet in the cold morning air. Branches hang low like they're bowing to something I can't see. And then, around the final bend, the house. 2 stories, sprawling but sunken in posture. The shutters are closed tight, paint peeled from the frames. The porch sags slightly on one side. Vines crawl up the siding like they've been trying to claim it for years and keep getting interrupted. I park at the edge of the gravel and step out slowly, gravel shifting beneath my boots. The silence here is louder than the wind. No birds, no bugs, just stillness. The front door sticks, but not enough to stop me. It groans open with the reluctant sigh of something that knows it's been found. Inside, the air is heavy, not just with dust, but something older, thicker. Every surface wears a thin coat of gray. The wallpaper curls at the corners. The furniture, untouched but sunken, like time pressed too hard on it. And it smells like him, not fresh, not like home, but like something once his. I move slowly through the entryway, eyes adjusting to the filtered light. The curtains are drawn but brittle, letting in just enough to make out shapes. The edge of a sofa, the ghost of a dining table. A cup still rests on a coaster near the fireplace, as if someone meant to return any minute. My hand brushes along the wall as I walk, fingers grazing picture frames, light switches, paint ridges. At the end of the hall, there's a photograph. The only one not turned face down. It's him, younger, standing beside a woman I don't recognize. He's smiling. Not the tight, polite smile he gave cameras at work events or Ellie's graduation. This one is softer, unscripted. A smile I don't think I ever saw in real life. The woman leans against him, hand at his waist, like she belongs there. The frame tilts slightly in my hand. There's no date, no name. Just 2 people caught in a moment that wasn't meant for me. I stare at it for a long time. Then I hear it. A soft thump. From upstairs. I stare at the photograph until the edges blur. Richard's arm loops around the brunette like it's the most natural thing in the world. Her dark hair is swept back in a way that looks effortless, not staged. They're standing right where I'm standing now. The porch visible behind them, paint fresher, magnolias in bloom. He looks younger, but it's more than time. He looks unburdened. I put the frame down carefully, afraid it might shatter under the weight of my grip. My breath has gone shallow without my realizing. The soft thump upstairs doesn't come again. Maybe it was the house settling. Maybe it wasn't. I move toward the parlor, scanning for clues. The drawers of an antique writing desk are stiff but open with a reluctant jerk. Inside are scraps of another life. Folded letters with handwriting I don't recognize, receipts from stores I've never been to, names scribbled in margins. M. Bishop appears more than once. Gas, electric, a local grocery, all paid on time. My pulse hammers as I flip through them faster. It's not ancient history. The ink is fresh, the envelope's new. At the bottom of one stack is a bill for water service, dated last month, paid in full. The air feels different now. Not abandoned, but paused, lived in. I make my way into the kitchen. The linoleum floor is faded but clean. The fridge hums softly, an oddly domestic sound in this mausoleum of secrets. I pull the handle. Inside is a jolt of color. Milk with a seal unbroken, eggs dated this week, fruit in a glass bowl, neatly wrapped leftovers, not dusty cans or dried goods, groceries someone bought and put away days ago. My fingers tighten around the edge of the door until they ache. This isn't a shrine, it's a home. Someone is living here. I shut the fridge slowly, pulse roaring in my ears. The quiet of the house presses closer, like it's listening. I back out of the kitchen, scanning the hall, the staircase, the photograph still staring from its hook. What did you do here, Richard? A sound interrupts the question. Low, rolling, tires crunching gravel. I freeze. The sound grows louder, closer. A car engine easing down the long drive. Not fast, but steady, deliberate. I glance at the front window. Through a gap in the brittle curtains, I catch a slice of movement. The glint of a windshield, a pale arm on a steering wheel. I don't think. I move. Down the hall, into the narrow space beside the doorway that leads to the sitting room. There's a coat rack here, a half-open closet. I press myself against the wall, heart thudding so hard I'm sure it's audible. The tires stop. Silence. Then the front door creaks. Not the moan of disuse from when I arrived, but a practiced push. Someone who knows how to handle it. A draft snakes through the hall, carrying the scent of damp leaves and cold air. Footsteps cross the threshold. Slow, confident. I clutch my purse to my chest, fingers brushing the outline of the key, the edges of my phone. Useless here with no signal. The footsteps pause. A voice, low, unfamiliar, says something I can't make out. Words to someone else? To themselves? Then another sound, softer but unmistakable. A set of keys dropped on a table. I hold my breath until my ribs ache. Whoever this is, they belong here, more than I do. And they don't know I'm standing 10 feet away. The floorboards creak once more, closer this time, moving toward the hall. I squeeze myself flatter against the wall, every nerve screaming, and then a shadow falls across the doorway. The shadow stretches long across the hall, broken only by the flicker of weak daylight sneaking through the curtains. My breath rattles in my throat. Then she appears. She steps into view slowly, a reusable grocery bag slung over one arm, another clutched at her hip. Plastic-wrapped vegetables and a carton of milk peek out from the top. Her hair, dark, glossy, swept back exactly as in the photograph, is damp from the fog outside. She's humming faintly, a low, tuneless sound that dies the instant she senses something's off. She stops in the middle of the hall. Her eyes sweep the space. The kitchen doorway, the coat rack, the photograph on the wall now slightly crooked from my touch. I can feel my pulse in my fingertips. Before I think better of it, I step out from behind the doorframe. Who are you? My voice comes out sharper than I intended, a rasp that sounds like someone else entirely. The woman drops one of the bags. An apple rolls across the worn floorboards, bumping softly against the baseboard. She straightens but doesn't back away. I could ask you the same, she says. Her voice is steady, but her knuckles whiten where she grips the remaining bag. For a heartbeat, we just stare at each other. Her gaze flicks to my purse. then to the hallway behind me, as though she's taking stock of exits, of what I might have seen. I'm Nora Lane, I say finally, each syllable deliberate. This is my husband's house. Something in her expression shifts. Not confusion, exactly. Something colder. No, she says quietly. It's my husband's house. The room tilts. What? She sets the other bag down carefully, like she's defusing a bomb. Mara Bishop. Her chin lifts slightly, as though bracing for impact. I'm Richard's wife. The sound in my ears is like static. For a second, I can't tell if I'm standing or falling. I am his wife, I hear myself say. The words are brittle, splintering as they leave my mouth. Mara's eyes widen, a flicker of something raw crossing her face. Shock, anger, or maybe a mirror of the nausea flooding my own chest. We stand there in the sagging hall, the air thick with dust and the ghosts of 2 marriages, and I can't seem to breathe deeply enough. My hand goes to the wall, steadying myself, but the wallpaper feels soft, as if it might tear under my palm. When? She asks finally, her voice quieter. 32 years, I manage. We were married 32 years. Her throat works as she swallows. 15, she says. 15 for me. It's impossible, but here she is, the woman from the photograph, holding grocery bags in a house my husband swore didn't exist. My mind flashes through years of oddities I'd brushed aside. Unexplained trips, late calls, the unshakable sense of a life I wasn't privy to. It all rushes up now, jagged and hot, pressing against my ribs like it wants out. My voice breaks. I have to stop. Inhale. Start again. He married us both. Mara closes her eyes briefly, like the act of shutting them will make the truth rearrange itself. When she opens them, there's no softness left, only steel. Then one of us, she whispers, was never supposed to know. The words hang there between us, heavy as the house itself. I feel my knees threaten to give. The key in my purse digs into my palm where I've clenched it, the metal cutting a crescent into my skin. Why did he bring you here? I ask, barely audible. But Mara doesn't answer. Her gaze flicks past me toward the staircase. I turn, following her eyes. At the top of the stairs, in the dim light, a third shadow shifts, small, slight, and unmistakably human. The moment the figure disappeared from the top of the stairs, not a child. I saw that clearly now, but a woman, slight and quick. Mara bolted up after her. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Not yet. My legs carried me in the opposite direction, deeper into the house, toward the back. Somewhere he would have hidden the truth. Somewhere he would have kept records. Richard had always been meticulous. If he lied, he documented the lie. The hallway narrowed into what must have once been a den, and then a door. Closed. Brass knob tarnished but polished enough to show recent use. I twisted it and stepped into what could only be his study. Mara appeared behind me moments later, breathing hard. She locked the door upstairs. She? Mara didn't answer. She scanned the room instead, eyes sharp. She looked less like the woman in the photograph now, soft, unassuming, and more like someone who had bled for answers before and wasn't afraid to do it again. We didn't speak. We moved. The desk drawers were packed, neatly labeled folders, envelopes stuffed with statements and records. A safe sat beneath the bottom drawer, already unlocked. Inside, the first thing I saw was 2 marriage licenses, one with my name, dated in 1991, another with Mara's, 2010. I held them side by side, my hand trembling. Proof, I whispered. He did it. Both of us. Mara took them from me and stared as if looking long enough would unravel them. He lived 2 lives. No, I said. My voice cracked. He built them. Behind the licenses were bank records, accounts I'd never seen, offshore, shadowed beneath LLCs, all in Richard's handwriting. My name wasn't on a single one, neither was Mara's. Mara leafed through the papers, her mouth twisted. He didn't love us. I wanted to argue, but the weight of the files in my hand said otherwise. He chose us. That's worse. She stopped suddenly, pulling out a folder marked Security. Inside were insurance forms. 3, maybe 4 policies. And each one, with different dates, different providers, listed both our names. Primary and contingent beneficiaries. He played both sides, she said bitterly. If one of us died first, the other got paid. If he died, we both do. My stomach turned. That's fraud. This whole thing is criminal. Mara dropped into the desk chair, the papers falling into her lap. He planned it like a will, a backup plan, no matter who found out. I leaned against the bookshelf, arms crossed, trying to stop the shaking. What was the plan, if we found out? She looked up at me, eyes unreadable. Maybe he thought we never would. The weight of it hit all at once. 32 years of marriage, of trust, of shared holidays and quiet betrayals dressed as business trips. And none of it had been just mine. He'd given it to someone else too. Not like a thief. Like a king with a second kingdom. I sank to the floor. We were his trophies. Mara's gaze flicked. To the files, the licenses, the insurance forms. All of it lined up, sorted, cataloged like pieces of a portfolio. Yes, she said finally, and we can either stay that way, or we decide what happens now. I looked up at her. She wasn't crying. Neither was I. We were too far past grief for that now. What are you saying? I asked. She leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. He orchestrated everything, our lives, our love, even our losses. But he didn't plan for this. Her voice sharpened. He didn't plan for us to find each other. I nodded slowly. Then we finished what he started. Mara raised an eyebrow. On our terms. From upstairs, the locked door slammed. We both turned toward the sound, and then a voice. Clear. Young. Is someone down there? We didn't move at first, just listened to the weight of her voice drifting down the stairs. Then Mara stood, her posture rigid but controlled. We'll deal with her later, she said, low. Right now, we need to get ahead of this. I followed her back to the study, legs heavy with the ache of what we'd uncovered. My eyes kept flicking toward the hallway, half expecting another voice, another secret to tumble forward. But none came. Mara cleared a spot on the desk and pulled a notepad from the drawer. We list everything. Names, accounts, dates. We get it in order. I sat down slowly. And then? She looked up at me, eyes sharp. Then we decide what to do with it. We worked in silence, except for the scratch of pen on paper and the shuffle of documents. 2 marriage certificates, 3 joint insurance policies, 4 LLC accounts with offshore transfers, dozens of receipts. Some in his handwriting, some not. By the time we reached the bottom of the last drawer, a full hour had passed. I leaned back, staring at the mountain of proof. It's enough to bury him, even now. Mara shook her head. Or enough to bury us, if we hand it to the wrong person. I took out my phone and stepped toward the window. No signal still, but Wi-Fi blinked to life in the corner of the screen. Unsecured. Probably forgotten. I opened the voice call app and dialed Graham. He answered on the 3rd ring. Mrs. Lane? His voice sounded calm. Too calm. I just have a quick question, I said, keeping my tone light. Did Richard ever mention a woman named Mara Bishop to you? There was a pause. No more than 2 seconds. But long enough. Graham coughed. I believe the name came up in passing, yes. She was involved in his, charitable interests. I don't have full details. You're lying, I said. My voice didn't rise, but it hit steel. You knew. I think we should discuss this in person, he said quickly. There are nuances. You're part of this. I snapped. Another pause. Then quietly, Nora, there are things you may not want on record. I hung up. I turned to Mara. He knew. She didn't look surprised. Then it's worse than fraud. It's a web. One that people like Graham helped him build. The words sat between us like a matchbox ready to strike. Mara stood, walked to the window, and pushed the curtain aside. The fog had lifted slightly. The magnolias were still bare. We sell the house, she said suddenly. Before they can freeze it. Before any of this gets tied up in court. Probate's only as strong as what people know to look for. I blinked. You want to flip it? What, just wash it all away? Why not? She said. Richard's dead. His little fiefdom died with him. Let the house go. Turn the land into something useful. Take the money. Walk away. I stared at the files, at the desk, at the room full of lies so carefully preserved it felt more like a museum than a home. It's blood money, I said. Still spends, she replied. I hesitated. The air in the house had changed. No longer still, no longer dead. It was watching us. Waiting. Not just for grief, but for action. I don't trust it, I said. This house feels cursed? No, I said slowly. Powerful. Mara turned toward me, her voice soft. So let's use it. Before someone else does? Upstairs, a floorboard creaked again. Not heavy, but deliberate. Then the lock clicked. Night settles over the Raven house like a lid snapping shut. The fog has thinned into a low mist, but the trees still bend toward the windows as if eavesdropping. Mara paces the length of the study, her arms folded tight. I sit on the sofa with the files spread around me like a paper crime scene. Neither of us speaks. My phone buzzes. One bar of service flickers to life, then disappears again. But the message remains. No number, no name, just text. Leave the Raven house. He warned you. The words crawl across the screen like something alive. My stomach turns, but I don't show it. Anonymous, I say softly. Mara crosses to me, peering over my shoulder. Who? Doesn't matter. My thumb hovers over reply, but I don't send anything. Whoever sent it already knows we're here. A sound breaks the tension, a low crunch of tires on gravel. Not the soft roll of a neighbor, not this far out. Brighter now, too. Beams of white light knifing through the gaps in the blinds. Mara stiffens. Again? I stand and move toward the front window. Through the slats, I see a black and white cruiser idling near the gate, its headlights carving the driveway in two. Blue lights pulse faintly against the magnolia trunks. There's a knock. Not frantic. Official. I open the door a crack. Mrs. Lane? The man on the porch is in uniform, mid-40s, clean shave, a notebook tucked into his vest. Officer Ruiz, County Sheriff's Department. He tips his head politely toward Mara, who has hovered just behind me. And you are? Mara Bishop, she says, voice tight. He nods once and steps into the foyer, his boots leaving dark prints on the worn wood. Got a call about possible trespass or a break-in. No break-in, I say. We're supposed to be here. His eyes travel the hall, pausing on the files stacked on the side table. Property records list Mr. Richard Lane as sole owner. You both related? He was my husband, I say evenly. And mine, Mara blurts. Ruiz's brows lift, but he doesn't comment. He scribbles something in his notebook instead. We've had ongoing investigations into some of Mr. Lane's business interests, irregularities. He keeps his tone neutral, but there's weight under the word. If either of you come across ledgers, bank statements, anything financial, it's in your best interest to notify us. Mara takes a step back. Why? What's he being accused of? Ruiz closes his notebook. Nothing yet, just patterns, missing funds, unregistered parcels. My advice? His eyes flick between us. Don't stay here tonight. I tilt my head. That's not an order. No, he admits. Just a warning. He tips his hat and walks out, the screen door banging softly behind him. Through the window, we watch him climb back into the cruiser. He doesn't drive off right away. Instead, he sits there for a moment, phone to his ear, the blue glow of his dashboard lighting his face. Then the car rolls back down the drive and vanishes into the mist. The silence afterward feels heavier than his presence. Mara drops onto the edge of the sofa. They're watching us. They know we're here. This isn't just about him cheating. I gather the files into a neat stack, my hands steady despite the tremor in my chest. Richard's secret wasn't just another woman, I say. It's money, dirty money. Mara's face hardens. All the softness from earlier has drained out, leaving something sharper, more deliberate. Then we're in danger. I nod once. And alone. A thump echoes from the back of the house. Not the stairs this time, but the door that leads to the cellar. The handle turns. The handle turns once, twice, then stops. Mara and I stare at the cellar door, neither of us breathing. The silence stretches until it breaks under its own weight. I step forward first. My palm hovers over the knob, the cool brass slick under my fingertips. We need to see what's down there, I say quietly, before someone else does. Mara exhales through her nose, a sound halfway between fear and resolve. Fine, but we do it together. The door groans open. Stale air rises from the darkness, carrying the smell of damp stone and old earth. A single bulb hangs from a cord at the top of the stairs. I tug it, and weak yellow light spills down, barely reaching the bottom. We descend slowly, our footsteps echoing. The walls are lined with unfinished wood, the kind you'd find in a storage cellar, but everything is cleaner than it should be. No cobwebs, no dust, just a faint sheen like someone wiped it down recently. I thought you said this place was abandoned, Mara mutters. I thought it was. We reach the basement floor. A row of metal filing cabinets stands against one wall, their drawers labeled with Richard's tight handwriting. Decades of records. Insurance, taxes, deeds. I pull open a drawer. Empty. Another. Also empty. Where are the files? I ask under my breath. Mara's gaze darts to the far corner where a wooden panel juts slightly from the wall. There, she whispers. I cross the room and press my palm against the panel. It shifts under the pressure with a faint click. My heart stutters. Together, we pry it loose. Behind it, recessed into the concrete, sits a metal door about 4 feet wide, bolted to the foundation itself. The surface is dull gray, no handle, just a keypad glowing faintly green. Mara inhales sharply. That wasn't here before. I've been down here. I'd have seen it. I run my fingers along the edge of the vault. Maybe he built it behind the panel. Maybe he built everything behind something else. The keypad blinks, waiting. On instinct, I type in the numbers of our anniversary. My anniversary with him. The light turns red. Mara steps forward and types hers. 0619. The light flicks green. The lock releases with a deep clunk. The door swings open slowly, heavy enough to make the floor vibrate. Inside, the air is cooler, drier. Metal shelves line the small space, stacked with bundles wrapped in plastic. Cash. Stacks and stacks of it, bound in crisp hundreds and fifties. On the lowest shelf, a row of velvet pouches spills uncut diamonds across a steel tray, glinting like frozen stars. Above them, a row of manila envelopes stamped with notary seals. I slide one out. Property deeds, multiple states, multiple parcels, all owned under shell companies I don't recognize. Mara's hand covers her mouth. My God. I feel my pulse hammering at my throat. He used this place to launder investments. All the trips, the shell companies. It was all feeding here. On the top shelf sits a single envelope, not sealed, but folded. My name scrawled across the front in his handwriting. Beside it, another with Mara's. My fingers shake as I pick mine up. The paper inside smells faintly of his cologne. The note is brief. If I'm gone, take what's yours. If you're brave enough. Mara reads hers silently. Her knuckles whiten. Then she looks up at me, eyes burning. He left this for us, she whispers. But not together. The vault door creaks slightly behind us as if settling back into place. From upstairs, a floorboard snaps. We turn toward the stairs at the same time. Someone is coming down. The footsteps stopped just before the last step creaked. Mara and I stood frozen, the vault still cracked open behind us. For a moment, I couldn't tell if it was fear or adrenaline slowing time, thickening the air around us. But no one appeared. A muffled thud above, like a door closing. Then silence again. Whoever was up there, they'd either changed their mind or were waiting. We didn't speak until we were back upstairs, locking the cellar behind us. Mara dropped onto the edge of the dusty couch, her chest heaving. The duffel bag sat at her feet now, half filled with bricks of $100 bills. She hadn't said a word while stuffing it, just moved like a machine. I stood across the room, arms folded. We should call someone. She looked up, eyes narrowing. And say what? Hi, officer. We just broke into a vault hidden behind a fake wall in my dead husband's secret basement. I ignored the sarcasm. He's been laundering money. Diamonds, offshore properties. And now he's dead. She cut in. So, unless you want to go down with him, maybe think twice before dialing 911. I blinked, thrown by how fast the grief had hardened into something else. You're not seriously thinking of taking that money. She didn't flinch. I already took it. Mara. What? Her voice cracked around the edge. You think I didn't lose something too? You think this... She gestured toward the floor, the walls, the vault under our feet. Doesn't prove everything I was afraid of? My chest tightened. It proves he lied to both of us. She stood abruptly, slinging the bag over her shoulder. Then we're even. I'm not doing this with you. Then don't. Her voice shook now, a tremor behind the bravado. But don't pretend this is about morals. You're scared. That's all. Scared to admit how much of your life was built on a lie. I moved toward her. I loved him. So did I. Silence. The kind that hangs in a room like humidity, thick and bitter. Then Mara exhaled, slow and shallow. But only one of us knew who he really was. And I'm not staying here while you figure that out. She turned for the door. My voice followed her before I could stop it. If you walk out with that money, you're not just running from him. You're running from me. She paused, just for a second, then kept walking. The door slammed. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space she'd left behind. My stomach churned. My head was pounding. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Quiet, personal war. I pulled my phone from my pocket. My hands trembled as I found the number, my thumb hovering before I tapped call. Graham answered on the second ring. Nora? You knew, I said flatly. He was quiet. Knew what? Don't do that. You knew Richard wasn't clean. You protected him. More silence, then a breath. It's not that simple. No, it's not. Especially now. What happened? I found the vault. The money. The deeds. Everything. He swore under his breath. Mara took a bag of it. Walked out. I think she's gone for good. Jesus! I'm not calling the cops. Not yet. But if anything happens, if this blows up, it's on you now. You hear me? His voice was quiet, unreadable. I hear you. I hung up. Outside, the wind had picked up. The trees along the property line bent in sharp gestures, like they were trying to whisper something I wasn't ready to hear. I sat on the arm of the couch, the silence inside the house stretching long and brittle. Then my phone buzzed. A text. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. You were never supposed to find it. I stared at the screen, then it buzzed again. You're in danger. Get out. Now. I woke coughing. At first I thought it was just the dry air, maybe dust from the cellar still clinging to my clothes. But then I smelled it. Sharp, acrid, unmistakable. Smoke. I sat up too fast. My eyes stung. The room flickered with an unnatural glow, dancing red light pulsing against the walls like a silent alarm. I stumbled toward the window, flung open the curtain. Flames were chewing through the porch roof, racing up the siding. The Raven Road house was burning. I bolted down the hall barefoot, heart ricocheting off my ribs. The front door handle scorched my palm when I grabbed it. I yanked it open and stumbled outside, barefoot on the gravel, blinking through the haze. The entire left side of the house was already swallowed, fire cracking through the kitchen windows, black smoke pumping out of the roof like it had a vendetta. The wind fed it, made it angry. I didn't even think about going back in. The vault, the documents, the walls. Everything was gone. My phone buzzed in my pocket again. Still that same number from earlier. I pulled it out, the screen hot against my skin. Too late. You should have left. A sick tremor crawled up my spine. A few houses down, lights were coming on. I heard sirens in the distance. I stood frozen in the yard, wrapped in nothing but a hoodie and panic, watching the only piece of truth I had turned to smoke. That's when I saw the tire marks. Fresh ones, cutting away from the gravel driveway, skidding toward the road. Mara's car was gone. So was the duffel bag. And the diamonds. By the time the fire trucks arrived, half the roof had collapsed. I stood behind the yellow tape, wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket someone handed me. One of the neighbors offered tea. I couldn't stop shaking. A black SUV pulled up just as the second engine started hosing the side yard. Detective Ruiz stepped out, his coat unbuttoned, his eyes scanning too quickly. He found me before I could pretend not to see him. "Ms. Langley," he said, not quite a question. I nodded. He walked right up, took in the mess, the flames, the smoke still blooming into the sky like something biblical. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and I knew what he saw. Soot on my face, eyes wide, hands trembling. "Rough night?" he asked. I didn't answer. He squinted like he already didn't like how this conversation would end. "Want to tell me what happened here?" "I woke up to smoke," I said, voice raw. "Didn't see who started it. Just fire everywhere." "Interesting," he muttered. "Any chance your friend Mara's still inside?" I hesitated, just for a beat, but it was enough. Ruiz's mouth tightened. "She left last night," I said. "Took her car, and a bag of cash." "Cash," he repeated. "I didn't take anything." He took a slow step closer. "And if we don't find her?" I stared at the flames. "I didn't start this." "No," he said softly, "but you'll pay for it if we can't find her." My throat closed. Behind me, the structure groaned as more of it caved. The smell of burning insulation clung to my skin, my hair, my teeth. Someone had made sure the vault never saw daylight again. Whether it was Mara or someone else, didn't matter. Not to them. I turned my face away from Ruiz, blinking hard. The wind shifted, and for a second I saw it. right where the cellar entrance had been, a figure in the smoke. Not a firefighter, not a neighbor. Someone standing too still, watching. But when I looked again, the spot was empty. Gone. The flames snapped louder. I stepped back instinctively. Someone wanted this covered up. And whoever they weren't finished. My phone buzzed again. Next time, I won't miss. I hadn't slept. Not really. By morning, my hands were still shaking, and every sound outside made my spine stiffen like it might be the figure I'd seen through the smoke, or thought I saw. But one thing was clear. Whoever lit that fire wanted the evidence gone, which meant there was still something left to find. I drove into town with a burner laptop wedged under the passenger seat and the only flash drive that hadn't melted in the fire. Richard's backup, the one he'd once labeled travel docs in Sharpie. It wasn't travel. In the corner booth of a gas station diner, I nursed a bitter cup of coffee and clicked through folders. For hours. Layer after layer of fake LLCs, wire transfers to Swiss and Bahamian banks, a few international real estate transactions buried under layers of false identities. The pattern didn't make sense. Until it did. One account name kept repeating. Kirkland Century Holdings. I ran it through every open-source database I had access to. 3 shell companies later, I hit a name I recognized. Graham Wexler. I stared at the screen until the waitress came to refill my cup for the 3rd time. He hadn't just known about Richard, he'd helped him. Moved the money, laundered the assets, hidden the trail. And now that Richard was dead and Mara had vanished with a bag of diamonds, Graham was playing both sides of the fire. I texted him to meet. No explanation, no pleasantries. Just, we talk. In person. 1 hour. Montclair parking deck. Level 4. Come alone. To my surprise, he did. His SUV pulled up slow and smooth, like always, the engine barely humming. He stepped out in a pressed shirt and jacket, like we were meeting for brunch instead of blackmail. His calm irritated me more than his silence. "You look tired," he said. I didn't bother responding. I tapped my phone, hit record, and left it on the dash of my car as we leaned on the concrete railing. "I know you moved the money," I said. "I traced the accounts. Kirkland Century." His brow twitched, just slightly. Then he smiled, faint and amused. "You've been busy. You were laundering it before Richard died. You're still moving it. Offshore. My name's tied to at least 2 properties I never even saw." "And?" I blinked at him. "And? That's all you've got. You want me to confess something?" His voice didn't rise. If anything, it got quieter. "You think some private Google sleuthing gives you leverage?" I leaned in. "I think Mara has something you need. Something Richard promised you but never delivered." That wiped the smirk off his face. "She's gone," I added. "And if you're behind that fire—" "I'm not," he snapped, finally. "If I were, you wouldn't be here to accuse me." We stared at each other, silence stretching like wire. Then his voice dropped. "Walk away, Nora. I'm warning you. You think you're getting closer, but you're not. You're just circling the same grave he fell into." I swallowed hard. "Is that what happened to Richard?" He didn't answer, just turned and walked toward his car. Before he got in, he looked back once. "If you keep going," he said, "you'll end up like him." I waited until he was gone, then climbed into my car with trembling hands. My phone was still recording. I backed it up immediately to a private drive. Double encrypted. Multi-location. I didn't trust the cloud, not anymore. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. I was still trying to catch my breath when the phone rang. Detective Ruiz. I hesitated, then answered. "Yeah?" His voice was clipped. "You sitting down?" "Why?" "We found a car this morning," he said. "Abandoned on Ridgeview, just outside county lines." The pause told me too much. Whose? I asked, even though I already knew. Your husband's second wife, Mara Langley. My fingers clenched around the steering wheel. She's dead, he said. Engine was still warm. Looks like she didn't even make it out of the driver's seat. My vision blurred. What? How? We're still working it. No sign of the money. No sign of anyone else. He paused again, like he was giving me space to lie or cry. Any idea who she might have been running from? I couldn't speak, but I knew. Whoever set that fire wasn't finished. And now, they were hunting cleanup. The waiting room at the county sheriff's office smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. My palms were still raw from clutching the steering wheel on the drive over. Everything inside me wanted to leave, but Ruiz had said it was urgent. He appeared in the doorway, his coat thrown over one shoulder, jaw tight. Come with me, he said quietly. We went down a narrow hallway lined with bulletin boards. At the end, he pushed open a door into a windowless evidence room. A single metal table sat in the center. On it, a clear evidence bag held something blackened and bent. Recognize this? Ruiz asked. I stepped closer. It took me a second to see past the char. It was a key. Long, heavy, the teeth still distinct despite the burn marks. My throat went dry. That's mine, I whispered. He shook his head once. Yours is still on your ring. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my own key. Same brass shaft, same distinctive nick near the head. They could have been twins. Ruiz's voice was low. We found it in Mara's car, on the passenger seat. My stomach turned. Then she had her own? He nodded. 2 keys, 1 lock. Someone else had access, Nora. I stared at the bag. Someone else. It clicked like ice cracking. Richard had always been obsessed with redundancy, spares for everything, even for secrets. I looked up at Ruiz. There's a third. His brows furrowed. A third what? A third key. My voice felt alien. Richard always had a master. Something no one else could touch. Ruiz exhaled through his nose. If that's true, we're running out of time to find it. He left me alone for a moment while he took a call. I didn't wait. By the time he came back into the room, I was already out the door, running for my car. The old house where Richard and I had lived before the marriage cracked open, the one I'd kept but never sold, still smelled faintly of cedar and dust. My hands shook as I opened the closet in the back room and pulled out the small fireproof safe. The code was muscle memory. The door swung open. Inside was nothing but a folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges. My heart hammered. Trust no one but yourself. Richard's handwriting. I pressed my palm against the inner wall of the safe. It shifted slightly under the pressure, just like the panel in the cellar had. Behind the false backing sat a thin black USB drive. I pulled it free, holding it like it might vanish. My laptop was already open on the kitchen counter. When I plugged it in, a single folder appeared. No password, no encryption. Inside, PDFs, spreadsheets, scans of passports, transfers between Kirkland Sentry and a dozen other shells. Graham's name threaded through all of them. Signatures, authorizations, not just laundering, bribes, offshore kickbacks, entire deals built on extortion. Everything. I called Ruiz. My voice barely worked. I have something. He didn't ask questions. Just, send me the location. By the time I heard the thrum of helicopters on the news an hour later, Ruiz was already leading a raid on Graham's downtown office. I watched the live footage on a muted TV screen, my laptop still open in front of me, the USB drive like a coal in my palm. The tension in my chest finally cracked. I sank down onto the kitchen floor, knees hitting tile. Tears blurred the screen. You tried to protect me, didn't you, Richard? I whispered. You left me the key. Somewhere deep in the house, a floorboard creaked. I froze. Then my phone vibrated on the counter. Unknown number. He left you more than one key. Another message followed immediately after. And I'm coming for it. The footage ran on every station. Graham Wexler in handcuffs, led out of his glass and steel downtown office in a crisp white shirt, his tie loosened like it was just another Tuesday. The reporters shouted over each other, microphones bobbing like baited hooks. He didn't speak. Didn't have to. The headlines filled the silence for him. Local financier linked to multi-state fraud ring. Assets seized. Charges pending. By noon, the freeze order hit the news. 16 accounts locked across 4 countries. Multiple shell companies dissolved overnight. The FBI held a press conference flanked by Ruiz and a U.S. attorney who kept calling it a stunning case of systemic betrayal. I watched it all from a seat in the back of the courtroom. Plain blazer, hair pulled tight, no makeup. The kind of anonymity I once feared but now craved. A low burn lived in my chest, something between vindication and disbelief. When I took the stand, the courtroom fell to a hush that felt heavier than applause. I told them what I knew, what I'd seen, what I'd found. My voice didn't crack, not even when they pulled up the documents from the drive and read the routing numbers out loud. I didn't look at Graham, not once. When it was over, Ruiz found me in the hallway. He waited until the crowd thinned, then stepped beside me like we were just 2 people on a smoke break, not survivors of the same wreck. "You didn't just survive," he said quietly. "You finished what he couldn't." I nodded. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. That part of me had been burned away, same as the house. Outside, reporters mobbed the steps. I kept walking, said nothing. Their voices chased me. "Nora, were you involved? Did you know? How long were you married before he died?" But none of it landed. They were talking to the wrong version of me. She didn't exist anymore. The Raven Road property sold within the week. What was left of it? The payout barely covered a fraction of the restitution order, but it was something. A symbolic offering to the system Richard had spent years trying to outmaneuver. The land was empty now, flattened and charred. The foundation still stained from the fire, but the sky above it was a different color. Clearer. Brighter. I stood at the edge with the urn in both hands. The wind was sharp, colder than the season called for. I'd kept the ashes for months. Couldn't bring myself to scatter them. Couldn't bring myself to not. But there was nothing left to uncover now. No more secrets to exhume. This was the last thing. "I don't forgive you," I said softly. The wind pulled the words from my mouth like it already knew them. I opened the urn. Ash drifted out slowly, catching the light. I didn't know what I expected to feel. Rage, maybe. Sorrow. But instead there was only quiet. Not peace, exactly. But the stillness that comes after everything has burned. He was dust now. Just dust. The last of him lifted into the air and vanished across the blackened land. I didn't watch it all go. I turned before it was finished. Let the wind carry the rest. Back at the car, I paused before climbing in. My phone buzzed. I flinched instinctively. Old reflex? But it was just an email this time. A legal notice. Richard Langley Estate. Final transfer confirmation. Everything else, the offshore assets, the buried titles, was now government property. But one small holding remained. A storage unit in his name. Just outside Santa Fe. I frowned. That hadn't come up before. Attached was the unit number. And something else. A scanned image from the contents list. One item stood out, written in Richard's own handwriting. Key, number 4. Do not release. I stared at it. He left more than one, and one of them was still waiting. It's quiet here. The kind of quiet that settles in you, not just around you. Wind moving through the tall marsh grass, the creak of wood shifting in salt air. the distant call of a gull that sounds like it's forgotten how to scream. My cottage sits just past the dunes on a sloping patch of coastal land where the air smells faintly of oysters and pine. The locals call it Low Tide Bend, and they say it's cursed with storms and bad cell reception. I call it perfect. I planted rosemary along the porch steps, painted the shutters the soft gray of driftwood. Inside, every corner holds something I built myself: refinished tables, thrifted lamps, linen curtains sewn in the pale hours between 2 and 4 a.m. when sleep still comes in pieces. It's not a new life, just a real one. I run a small design business now. Branding work, logos, layout, consulting. I keep my name off the website, my voice off the phone. Clients come through referrals, slow and steady, enough to keep the lights on, the coffee stocked, the sea glass bowl on the windowsill full of color. Ruiz came once. He didn't call ahead, just pulled up in a dusty rental car and climbed the porch steps like he was afraid I might disappear if he blinked. He handed me an envelope, thick and weathered. No badge, no official file, just a man doing something off the clock. Estate insurance, he said. Turns out Richard had a policy. Quiet one, separate from everything else. I blinked. I thought it all got seized. Not this, he said. This one was clean, legitimate, untouched. I opened the envelope and pulled out the statement. It wasn't a fortune, not like the vault, but it was something. A safety net I hadn't expected. I looked up at him. Why bring this yourself? He shrugged. Figured you deserved to hear it from someone who knows the difference between justice and paperwork. I smiled faintly. So I did take something after all. He didn't smile back. Just nodded once and turned to go. The car disappeared into the trees a minute later, and I stood on the porch a long time afterward, holding that envelope like it might vanish if I moved. Later that night, I sat by the back window with a glass of wine and watched the clouds part over the water. Sunlight broke through in thin, angled beams, the kind painters spend lifetimes chasing. It made the marsh shimmer like the whole coast had taken a deep breath. He thought he hid a house, I said aloud, not expecting an answer. But he really hid me from myself. I think back to all the doors Richard built, literal and otherwise, vaults, safes, codes. All of it meant to control the world he'd built, to wall it in, piece by piece. And I spent so long rattling those doors, trying to unlock him, trying to understand. But he was never the point. He was just the thing I had to survive. The storage unit in Santa Fe had held nothing but documents. More transfers, old passports, a photograph of him as a boy I hadn't seen before. I didn't take anything from it. I left it all where it belonged, boxed and buried. But the fourth key? I kept that. It sits in a drawer here, tucked beneath a stack of letters I've never sent. I take it out sometimes, not because it opens anything, but because it reminds me I don't need to anymore. All his secrets, his plans, his layers of deception, none of it cracked me. If anything, they stripped away the last illusions. Now, when I unlock something, it's mine. And when I look out at the morning sun rising over the marsh, catching on the edge of the tide, I don't think about Richard, or Graham, or Mara. I think about how far I've come, about who I became when no one was watching. I took the keys, and what I found inside wasn't his secret. It was my freedom.